set the night ablaze. Like fireflies in a jar, each individual radiated a unique hue: ambers, soft blues, vibrant pinks, painting the town in an ethereal tapestry of feeling. Leela stepped cautiously into the town square, her chest tight with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Her own glow, usually a gentle amber when hope stirred within her, now felt fragile and faint, a barely there flicker struggling against the shadows cast by her grief. The memory of Grace hovered at the edges of her mind, cold and sharp, threatening to snuff out the fragile light she'd fought so hard to nurture since returning. Around her, the festival was in full swing. Children laughed and twirled beneath strings of lanterns, their bright lights mingling with their vibrant auras. Maggie waved enthusiastically from the cafe terrace, her own glow a triumphant quarrel, the result of months of healing and rekindled joy. Jonas was nearby, his silver-streaked hair catching the lantern light as he conversed animatedly with townsfolk, narrating the history of their unique emotional phenomenon. But Lila's gaze drifted instinctively toward the quiet corner by the little bookstore. Ethan stood there, dark eyes reflecting the myriad lights, his usually muted glow brighter than it had been in Wixersoft, steady blue that seemed to pulse with unspoken emotion. He noticed her looking and offered a small, tentative smile. She felt her heart stutter, a flutter of warmth fighting through the cold. Yet, as the crowd swelled and the music rose, a gentle melody woven from the hum of voices and the soft strumming of a guitar, Leela's glow began to waver. The weight of her sorrow pressed down like an unyielding tide, dimming the light she'd barely managed to rekindle. A sudden rush of memories overwhelmed her, Grace's laughter echoing in their sunlit studio, the feel of his hand in hers, the unfinished canvas on her easel back home. Her breath caught, and the amber flicker inside her nearly died. She pressed her hands to her chest, fighting the despair threatening to pull her under. From the corner of her eye, Ethan moved closer, his presence at once grounding and gentle. He reached out, brushing a strand of chestnut hair from her face, and in a voice low and steady, began to read aloud a poem, one she'd heard him recite softly during quieter moments. The words wove through the night air, a balm for her raw edges. The light that flickers in the darkest night, he intoned, is the bravest light of all. Leela's fingers found his, their grasp tentative but sure. She let the words soak in, the warmth of his hand anchoring her amidst the swirling sea of light and shadow. Slowly, the cold retreating, her glow responded, pulsing gently, a soft amber rekindled. Together, they stepped toward the center of the square, where the townspeople had gathered in a circle, their collective light a radiant beacon of resilience and hope. As Leela and Ethan joined hands, their lights intertwined, his quiet blue blending with her warm amber, creating a shimmering swirl of color that drew admiring gasps from the crowd. In that moment, the festival transcended celebration. It became a testament to the power of vulnerability, connection, and the fragile beauty of second chances. Leela felt the grip of her grief loosen, replaced by a tentative but growing hope. Around them, the town's glow seemed to brighten in response, as if the very air hummed with the promise of healing. The night stretched on, alive with laughter, music, and the soft flicker of countless hearts alight in shared understanding. Yet beneath the joy, Lila knew the journey ahead was far from over. The shadows of loss would linger, but now, illuminated not by solitary sorrow but by the light of a connection that dared to hope, she was ready to face whatever came next. The festival's magic wasn't just in the glowing lights or the stories shared, it was in the courage to shine, even when the nights seemed darkest. And tonight, That courage was hers to hold. "Stay with me," Ethan whispered as the crowd's cheers swelled, their hands still entwined, "and we'll find the light together." Leela met his gaze, a smile breaking through the melancholy. "Together," she promised, "we'll keep our hearts alight." As the stars wheeled overhead and the town pulsed with radiant hope, the Night of Lights became more than a festival. It was the beginning of a new chapter, glowing brightly against the darkness. The bookstore was quiet, save for the faint rustling of pages and the occasional creak of old wood settling into the evening. Outside, the town's nightly glow shimmered faintly through the large front windows, but inside, a softer, more intimate light bathed the room. A single candle flickered on the small table between them, its flame dancing gently, casting warm shadows that flickered across Ethan's face. Leela sat opposite him, her chestnut hair catching the candlelight, eyes wide and attentive. She had never seen Ethan like this, so open, so exposed. The usual calm reserve that cloaked him like a well-worn sweater was gone, replaced by something raw and fragile. "I've always been afraid," Ethan began, his voice barely above a whisper, "afraid that if I let anyone in, if I let my light shine too brightly, it might just flicker out, that it would be snuffed out by loss again." His hands clenched tightly in his lap, knuckles whitening. Leela reached out instinctively, her fingers brushing against his. The contact sent a small pulse of warmth through her, a rhythm that matched the slow, steady glow beginning to form around him. "It's your sister, isn't it, Ella?" Leela's voice was gentle, not pressing but filled with understanding. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "She was everything to me when she died. It was like my light dimmed, and I've been afraid to let it grow since." The vulnerability in his confession was staggering. For so long, Leela had puzzled over his muted glow, the way it seemed almost to resist the town's usual brilliance. Now, she saw it was not a lack of feeling, but a fortress built from fear. "I thought if I could just keep it small, keep it hidden, I could keep myself safe. But it's lonely," he admitted, voice cracking slightly. "Lonelier than I ever imagined." Leela's own glow flickered uncertainly, the grief she carried still a weight on her heart. But in this moment, surrounded by the soft light of candles and the quiet hum of the bookstore, she felt something shift, a fragile thread weaving between them. "I know what it's like to carry a light that feels like it might go out any moment," she said softly, "Grace's memory. It's been my anchor and my storm. But maybe, together, we can find a way to make our light stronger, not despite the pain, but because of it." Ethan's eyes met hers, shining with new warmth. Slowly, the dim glow enveloping him brightened, flickering like a candle caught in a gentle breeze before steadying into a soft, steady flame. Lila's own light pulsed in response, their two lights weaving together in a dance of color and warmth. A silence settled between them, comfortable and filled with promise. The fears they had carried alone for so long now felt lighter, shared between two hearts willing to trust. "Thank you for listening," Ethan whispered, squeezing her hand gently. "Thank you for trusting me," Leela replied, a smile breaking through the shadows that had long haunted her. Outside, the town's glow seemed to brighten, as if reflecting the new light kindling within the bookstore. The night was no longer just a backdrop for sorrow, but a canvas for hope, painted in the intertwined lights of two souls daring to heal. As the candle flickered low, they leaned closer, the quiet warmth between them a promise that even the faintest light, when shared, could shine brilliantly. And in that shared glow, they found a beginning, second chance, bathed in the soft, enduring light of love. But even as their lights grew brighter, questions lingered. Could they sustain this fragile glow against the shadows still lurking? Would the past's weight ever fully loosen its grip? And, most importantly, were they ready to face what the future held together? The answers would come with time, but for now, in the quiet bookstore under the veil of night, Leela and Ethan embraced the hopeful vulnerability of their confessions, ready to step into the light hand in hand. The journey ahead was uncertain, but their hearts at last were alight. The morning light filtered softly through the wide windows of the studio, casting a gentle golden glow that seemed to dance across the scattered canvases and paintbrushes. Leela stood before her easel, heart steady but pounding with a quiet intensity. The painting stretched before her was unlike any she had done since returning. Homer vivid composition of swirling colors and light, embodying the very essence of hope and acceptance she had been struggling to reclaim. Her brush hovered for a moment, trembling slightly, before she laid down the final strokes, a burst of warm amber and glowing white that seemed to radiate from the canvas itself. The image captured the interplay of shadow and illumination, the delicate balance between grief and healing. It was a visual testament to the journey she had endured, the losses she had faced, and the fragile but undeniable strength of new beginnings. Breathing deeply, Lila stepped back and let her gaze linger on the painting. For the first time in months, her emotional glow flickered steadily, not dim, not uncertain, but warm and steady. It was as if the light within her had been coaxed back to life by the very act of creation. A soft knock at the door drew her attention. She turned to see Ethan standing hesitantly in the doorway, the early morning light catching the thoughtful lines of his face. His dark hair was tousled, and the cozy sweater he wore seemed to wrap him in quiet comfort. More noticeable, though, was the subtle change in his glow. Where before it had been faint and muted, now a gentle shimmer of light surrounded him, as if her own courage had begun to kindle something inside him. "I thought I'd find you here," he said softly, stepping inside. His voice was low but steady, carrying a warmth that brushed against the edges of her heart. Leela offered a tentative smile, the kind that spoke of shared understanding and unspoken promises. "I finished it." Ethan's eyes drifted to the painting, his expression opening with something like awe. "It's beautiful. It's more than that," she replied. "It's everything I've been trying to say but couldn't put into words." They stood side by side, the silence between them comfortable and charged with possibility. The weight of past sorrows lingered, but it no longer felt like a chain. Instead, it was a foundation, one that could support something new, something tender and hopeful. Slowly, they moved outside into the quiet streets of the waking town. The sky was a canvas of soft blues and pinks, the first light of dawn promising endless potential. As they walked hand in hand, their emotional lights intertwined, her warm amber melding with his gentle silver, casting a luminous glow that pushed back the lingering shadows of the night. Around them, the town began to stir, the emotional auras of neighbors and friends flickering to life like a constellation of shared humanity. Lila and Ethan's joined glow was a beacon, a sign that even the faintest light could grow brilliant with care and trust. They paused beneath an ancient oak, its branches stretching wide as if embracing the new day. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm ready to trust, to feel, to be here with you." Lila's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, not of sorrow but of hope. "I'm ready to." In that moment, beneath the burgeoning light of dawn and the watchful eyes of their town, they stepped into the future together, two hearts alight, healing and intertwined. As the sun climbed higher, the colors of the world seemed richer, more alive. Lila knew that this was not an end but a beginning. The painting on her easel was more than art. It was a promise to herself, to Ethan, and to the luminous community that had welcomed her back home. And in the gentle glow of that new day, she finally felt whole again. But even as the light grew stronger, a quiet question lingered in the back of her mind. How much of the past could she truly leave behind? And what shadows might still await in the corners of the heart? The journey was far from over, but for now, with hearts alight and hands entwined, she embraced the fragile beauty of second chances. The dawn painted the sky with streaks of pink and gold, a silent witness to a love rekindled and a soul reborn. And as the town stirred awake, its nightly glow fading into morning's embrace, Leela and Ethan stood together ready to face whatever came next, their lights shining brighter than ever before. The morning sun slipped gently through the lace curtains of my studio, casting soft beams across the walls and floor. It was a quiet, tender light, nothing like the brilliant glow of the previous night's festival, but it held a warmth that settled deep in my chest. I sat before my easel, brush poised above a fresh canvas, and marveled quietly at how different everything felt. The air was calm, filled with a faint scent of freshly brewed coffee drifting in from the kitchen. My heart pulsed steadily, the glow no longer flickering uncertainly, but glowing with a soft, confident warmth. Ethan appeared in the doorway, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. His dark hair looked tousled from sleep, and the familiar cozy sweater he favored hung loosely on his frame. But it was the light around him, subtle, yes, but undeniably brighter than I had seen in months, that caught my breath. He carried 2 mugs of coffee, steam curling upward like tiny ribbons of hope. "Morning," he said quietly, stepping inside and setting a mug beside me. Our fingers brushed briefly, and I felt a spark ripple between us, a pulse of light that seemed to ripple through the room. It was a touch so ordinary, yet somehow extraordinary after everything we had been through. The vulnerability we shared the night before had woven a new thread between us, one that shimmered with promise. "Morning," I replied, voice soft. I took a tentative sip of the coffee, savoring the warmth as it spread through me, mingling with the glow in my chest. Outside the window, the town was already stirring. Neighbors greeted each other with smiles and laughter, their emotional lights blending in a gentle symphony of colors that shimmered under the pale morning sky. The festival had left a trace of magic in the air, a collective sense of healing and connection that lingered even as the lights of night faded. Maggie stopped by the cafe down the street, her curly red hair catching the sunlight as she exchanged cheerful waves with familiar faces. Jonas was already out, organizing a few stray decorations from the festival, his silver-streaked hair shining like a beacon of steadfast tradition. Their presence was a comforting reminder that this town, our town, was more than just a place. It was a community bound by shared light and shared stories. Ethan settled beside me on the porch, the wooden boards cool beneath us. We watched as the town slowly awoke, the glow of each person a testament to the resilience we all carried inside. The night's confessions and heartfelt moments had left us changed, our hearts no longer shadowed by fear, but illuminated by trust. "Last night was something," Ethan murmured, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my own glow pulse brighter. "It was," I agreed, feeling the weight of unspoken words lift between us. "I think it's the first time in a long while that I felt truly seen." He nodded, a shy smile breaking through his usual reserve. "Me too. I never thought I'd be able to open up like that, but with you, it felt safe. Like maybe the light inside me doesn't have to hide anymore." The words settled over us, a quiet vow spoken in the soft morning light. It was more than just a promise between two people. It was a reaffirmation of the town's message that even the faintest light can grow brilliant with care and trust. I reached out, taking Ethan's hand in mine, the contact sending a warm glow that spread through both of us. "We have a journey ahead," I said, "but I think we're ready to face it together." He squeezed my hand gently. Together. As the sun rose higher, bathing the town in golden light, I felt a deep sense of peace settle within me. The weight of grief still lingered, but it no longer threatened to consume my glow. Instead, it became a part of the spectrum of colors that made my heart shine uniquely bright. This morning was a new beginning, not just for me or Ethan, but for all of us who called this town home. And as I looked out over the streets, alive with the soft pulse of countless hearts, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it with our hearts alight. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was ours to paint, stroke by stroke, glow by glow. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to create again. We sat there for a while longer, hand in hand, watching the town come alive with light and hope. There was something profoundly beautiful in the quiet moments after a storm, when everything felt possible again. "Coffee's good," I said with a small smile. Ethan chuckled softly. "Glad you think so. I might just make it our new morning ritual." I laughed, the sound light and free. I'd like that. And as the day stretched ahead, filled with endless possibilities, I knew this was just the beginning. The light within us was no longer fragile or tentative, it was steady, warm, and strong. Together, we would keep it glowing, no matter what shadows might come. The night of the festival might have ended, but our story was only unfolding, and with hearts alight, we were ready to shine brighter than ever before. The morning light filtered softly through the sheer curtains of my studio, casting a gentle glow over the scattered brushes and tubes of paint that littered the wooden table. It was a quiet kind of dawn, one that seemed to cradle the world in a hush of possibility. I stood before a large canvas, the surface alive with swirling colors that seemed to pulse with the same ethereal light that bathed the town at night. Each brushstroke was a delicate dance, a conversation between my heart and the memories that still lingered like shadows and warmth intertwined. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt a stirring inside me, a flicker of the creative flame that had once burned so brightly. The grief that had dulled my glow was no longer a weight pressing me into silence, but a subtle undercurrent that gave depth to the colors I laid down. Shades of deep indigo and soft amber blended with flashes of vibrant gold, mirroring the emotional spectrum I saw every evening when the town's hearts came alive in radiant light. I paused, stepping back to study the painting. It was imperfect, raw, and yet it held something precious, a testament to the journey I was on, from darkness toward a tentative light. Outside, the distant sound of children's laughter carried on the crisp autumn breeze, mingling with the rustle of fallen leaves. The world felt alive and full of quiet magic. Later that day, I found myself at Ethan's bookstore, a place that had become a sanctuary in its own right. The familiar scent of aged paper and cedarwood enveloped me as I stepped inside, a comforting balm to my restless mind. Ethan was there, seated by the fireplace, a worn book of poetry open on his lap. His dark hair caught the soft glow of the firelight, and his eyes, thoughtful and intense, lifted to meet mine with a warmth that had grown steadily over the weeks. He began to read, his voice low and steady, each word flowing like a gentle river over smooth stones. The poem spoke of loss and hope, of light found in unexpected places, and as I listened, I felt the dim pulse of his emotional glow flicker to life, quiet but undeniable. The room seemed to shrink around us, cocooning us in a shared moment of understanding and trust. For the first time, the distance between our guarded hearts felt less like a chasm and more like a bridge. Encouraged by this fragile connection, I invited a small circle of friends to Maggie's cafe that evening. The walls, adorned with local artwork and vibrant colors, seemed to hum with life. Among the familiar faces, Maggie's bright red curls and infectious smile were like a beacon of joy, her own glow radiant as ever. When I unveiled my latest paintings, the room fell into a hush, the air thick with appreciation and quiet awe. Each canvas was an attempt to capture the intangible, the way our emotions shimmered and danced in the night air, the interplay of grief and healing, the fragile beauty of second chances. As the guests murmured their praise, I felt a swell of warmth spread through me, a steady flame replacing the flickers of doubt. Maggie reached across the table, squeezing my hand with a fierce tenderness, her eyes shining with shared triumph. In the days that followed, I took long walks along the riverbank with Jonas. His silver-streaked hair caught the late afternoon sun as he spoke of the town's history and the mysterious origins of our emotional glow. The water mirrored the pastel sky, soft ripples whispering secrets as we wandered beneath the old oaks. Our conversations wove together the past and present, grounding me in a sense of belonging I hadn't realized I'd been craving. Through it all, Ethan was a constant presence, quiet, patient, and increasingly open. His glow, once a faint ember, now shimmered with a gentle amber light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with my own. We shared moments of laughter and silence, poetry and paint, slowly unraveling the layers of fear and grief that had kept us apart. That night, as I sat alone in my studio, I gazed at the canvases lining the walls, each one a chapter of my healing story. The colors danced and shimmered, a visual symphony of light and shadow, loss and love. It was as if my soul was finally speaking out loud, in hues and textures that words alone could never capture. Outside, the town's emotional glow began to rise with the setting sun, a tapestry of radiant hearts illuminating the streets. I felt my own light steady and sure, a beacon shining not just for myself but for the fragile, beautiful community that had welcomed me back. And somewhere in the quiet hush of the evening, I knew this was only the beginning. But as the night deepened, a subtle nervousness stirred within me, a question without an answer. Would this renewed passion, this delicate light I was nurturing, be enough to face the challenges still ahead? The shadows of doubt, though softened, still lingered just beyond the glow. I set my brush down and looked out the window, the town alive with shimmering hearts and hopeful whispers. Tomorrow I would paint again. Tomorrow I would try to let my light shine even brighter. The warm light of Ethan's bookstore was a haven in the cool evening air, the scent of aged paper and fresh coffee mingling in the small space. Ethan sat on the worn wooden bench by the window, the phone cradled in his hand. His fingers trembled slightly, not from the chill, but from the weight of the moment. The dim glow of his emotional light flickered uncertainly, a reflection of the turmoil inside him. For years, that light had remained muted, shadowed by the loss of his sister Ella and the silence that followed. Tonight was different. Tonight, he was reaching out. Outside, Leela's presence was a quiet anchor. She stood just beyond the glass, her paint-stained clothes catching the soft lamplight. Her own glow, once dimmed by grief, now pulsed with a gentle steadiness. She watched Ethan's silhouette, every breath he took a testament to the courage it took to confront his past. Without a word, she sent him all the strength she could muster. Ethan's thumb hovered over the call button before he pressed it decisively. The line rang, each tone echoing through the quiet shop. When finally answered, a familiar yet distant voice greeted him, his mother. The years of silence